In fact, Mark Agnifilo says, the government is in possession of written material that is absolutely privileged. Now, unfortunately for Mark Agnifilo, is his credibility, in my opinion, is a little bit shot. Hello, everybody. How are you doing on this fine Monday, if that's the day you're watching it? Well, if you watched my most recent video, you did see that I added on at the very end there a major update. And that is that now Mark Agnifilo with, representing Diddy, they're both claiming that the government is in unlawful possession of Diddy's privileged information. Now, Diddy has until Wednesday to respond to the government's response to his motion for bail. So Diddy asked to get out on bail again. It was the second time he's asked. He claimed he had all this new information. And the government just responded back and said, no, actually, Diddy did not have a bunch of new information. All the information was exactly the same information. He's just trying to argue the same crap all over again. Whew. Well, if you watched my most recent video, then you did see that I said it in that video. I said, y'all, they are telling us that Diddy is learning at this literally same time as the public that the government is in possession of his phone call records.
So the government's saying, look, Your Honor, there's nothing new that he's arguing. And in fact, we have some new information of our own. I guess now is a good time to let you know, Your Honor, that we actually are in possession of some of, if not all of Diddy's prison calls. Yeah, we didn't tell Diddy that. Boom. So like Friday night at midnight, Diddy ends up finding out that the government has been receiving his calls, which does raise issues, right? Like,
not only are they in possession of his phone call records, but they're also in possession of some notes that they, whenever Diddy was complaining about being locked up or whatever, and he was like, I can't even get my trial preparation done because they're doing all of these raids all the time. They're coming through, rifling through, ruffling through my stuff, taking my notes, taking my notebooks, taking my pens and pencils. I can't even have a pen. He was complaining about all that, right? Well, the government did just 3 days ago come out just 3 days ago, filing. Yes, they are in possession. The feds are in possession of Diddy's private notes. Okay. So here is the letter sent literally today by Mark Agnifilo to the court. And he says, Your Honor, defense counsel, that's him, Mark Agnifilo, has recently learned that the prosecutors are in possession of attorney-client privileged material, including the defendant's own written notes. That means Diddy, including Diddy's own written notes, Mark Agnifilo is saying. He goes on, this search and seizure are in violation of Diddy's 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights. Moreover, the targeted seizure of a pre-trial detainee's work product and privileged materials created in preparation for trial is outrageous government conduct, amounting to a substantive due process violation. Now, this is huge because substantive due process violation is another way to say mistrial. And this is freaking why y'all like to fuss at me. You like to get so up in arms at me because I've been saying we need to make sure that the trial process is actually fair. Because if it isn't, then people, namely in this particular situation, Diddy, Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Combs, can get off and never be prosecuted for this stuff, y'all. It's very important that everyone has a fair trial. Does everyone have a fair trial? No, I don't believe they do. But the solution for that is not to be cheering and arfing like seals whenever some not fair stuff happens. And you know what? I've been saying it. I've been getting a little bit of a message from the mothership that if I was in Diddy's situation, and I promise you, if you were in Diddy's situation, the issue is we, if I'm talking to you, you know who you are, wouldn't ever do the activities that Diddy is accused of. I wouldn't. The ones he's accused of, right? I wouldn't do those activities. But the reality, I'm so sorry if it's just more convenient for y'all to have cognitive dissonance than accept the reality. But the reality is people can and do sometimes, from time to time, state things on the record that are not true. Sometimes it's on purpose. Sometimes it's because they misremembered. Sometimes it's because they had a freaking memory implanted or something. Girl, I mean, I really don't know. Okay. But I felt like it was a little bit of a bridge too far that they're not letting Diddy have a pen and a notebook, and they were taking his private notes. And not only that, y'all, they took those notes and turned them over to the prosecutors. They gave them to the prosecutors. Okay. So now what Mark Agnifilo is arguing is that that was absolutely outrageous. And the fact that the prosecutors even have possession of this evidence is enough for a mistrial. I'm not sure I'm willing to go that far. I'm not sure. While I do support due process rights, I don't support Mark Agnifilo getting all the way ass carried away. Okay. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that as we work down the letter. I mean, the letter's only a page and a half. It's really not long. Mark Agnifilo says, because the prosecutors are currently in possession of privileged material and are actively using the material to detain the defendant, the defense requests an immediate evidentiary hearing. That's where he wants to come forth and ask some questions. Means Diddy and his lawyer are requesting to have a mini trial about this issue. This is an emergent matter, meaning it's an emergency, because the government has Diddy's privileged notes to his lawyers. Y'all, it really does seem egregious. Like, the government did admit that they had it. Like, I don't know how it works. Actually, I would love it if Emily D. Baker I don't know if she's Emily D. Baker. Hey, hi, shout out. Somebody, if y'all could, somebody put a timestamp here for her, because she knows about the specifics about stuff like this. And I would love to know, because I don't know. Is this the ordinary course of trial production in a case like this? Like, for example, what happened in this case where they do a quote unquote regularly scheduled prison or jail sweep, and then some materials are confiscated during the sweep. So Diddy had notes taken, and I think they took his pens and maybe other stuff. So they take those notes, the Bureau of Prisons, and then they pass the notes over to the prosecutors. Is this ordinary course of business type of stuff? Or should the prosecutors have, at the very least, first notified Diddy and his counsel about the fact that they had these materials in their possession? Is there an exigent circumstances thing? Because this is what they say. I'll pull up what they actually said. Okay, this is the footnote in question. They said, with respect to materials received from the Bureau of Prisons that included possibly privileged materials, such as notes recovered from Diddy's cell, it says the prosecution team only accessed those materials after they had been reviewed by the filter team. So what is this? Is this just like the normal way of how? I don't know how it should have been done. This might be how it's always done. But I'm just going to tell y'all just like the gut check, the lay person, not expert, because I really don't have any special knowledge about this procedural, process or whatever. What is the process? Because in my gut check, it feels like before Diddy and his lawyer learned about this in a public filing at the exact same time as like Tom, Dick, and Harry, you and me, it feels like they probably should have had to lodge that evidence in a file, or somebody who knows how this works, please comment below. I'm just a little bit unequipped to talk about that particular issue, but let's get back to this letter. So Mark quotes that thing that we just read. It says, the government's opposition to Diddy's bail motion states that the trial prosecutors are in possession of possibly privileged materials, such as the notes recovered from Diddy's cell. In fact, Mark Agnifilo says, the government is in possession of written material that is absolutely privileged. Now, unfortunately for Mark Agnifilo, is his credibility, in my opinion, is a little bit shot, because he said so unequivocally back in September, my client did not have contact with a grand jury witness. He has more sense than to do that and all that, right? Well, come to find out, according to the government, he did have contact with a grand jury witness after the guy was subpoenaed. I don't know what's true and I don't know what's not because I wasn't there. But Mark Agnifilo is saying it is absolutely privileged material and they should not have it. Mark says this is a matter of grave concern that most respectfully must be addressed immediately. For the following reasons. First, there's no dispute that the government is in possession of privileged material. Second, until receiving the government's submission at 11:29 p.m., 11:30 at night on a Friday night, Mark Agnifilo, and I said this in my most recent video that just came out. I was like, y'all, the Mark Agnifilo found out on a Friday night. I said this.
So the government's saying, I guess now's a good time to let you know, Your Honor, that we actually are in possession of Diddy's prison calls. Yeah, we didn't tell Diddy that. Boom. So like Friday night at midnight, Diddy ends up finding out that the government has been receiving his calls.
And he's saying, yep, that's what's happened. Yep. The defense had never been told that Diddy's notes were even taken from his cell, that the notes were given to the U.S. Attorney's Office, nor that these notes were then given to the trial prosecutors in this case, who then used this material in a filing to keep Diddy detained. It does seem a little bit opposed to due process. And I'm speaking about like the actual due process. I don't care what your opinion is. I'm not talking about, oh, let's argue about your opinion. Of course you're entitled to your opinion. And if enough people share your opinion, y'all can go out there and change the Constitution. But right now, it does appear to, at the very least, implicate Diddy's 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights. It does. I'm sorry, it does. Again, I'm looking forward to hopefully, like, I don't know, a person who worked as a trial attorney for a lot of years, hopefully Emily DeBaker, somebody else, if not her, talks about because this might be ordinary course of business, just how it goes. And he's getting his panties in a wad for no reason. I would like to know. I'm talking about how it works under the law and under the procedural rules. Okay. So Mark Agnifilo says, we request, that's him and Diddy, an immediate hearing at which the government shall provide answers to the following questions. So he wants to ask the following 6 questions to the government. Number 1, first, who authorized a search of Diddy's sleeping area, personal effects, and paperwork? Okay, who authorized the search? I remember reading in the government's papers that it was a pre-planned sweep and it was just there's no authorization, just pre-planned, but I don't know how any of this stuff works. So I'm just kind of like reading it along and reacting and commenting. Second question Mark Agnifilo wants to ask, who determined what paperwork to take out of Diddy's cell? That's a good question. I will say Mark Agnifilo might end up putting his foot in his mouth over this, because if they want to go into an evidentiary hearing on this whole thing, then the notes are going to come up at issue, and there might be stuff in them notes they don't want out right now to the public. You see what I'm saying? Third question Mark wants to ask, who decided to give the paperwork from the Bureau of Prisons to the feds, to the prosecutors? He also wants to ask the government who decided to give these to the, okay, so the first, okay. Third, who decided to give this paperwork to the United States Attorney's Office in general, like the whole office at all? And then the next question he wants to know is, and then after that, who over there decided to give it to the prosecutors who are prosecuting this case? Like, he seems to be taking issue with all of those decisions. The decision from the Bureau of Prisons to pass it over to the United States Attorney's Office, the decision of the United States Attorney's Office to then pass it over to the prosecutors specifically on this case. He's taking issue with all those steps. Fifth, he says he wants to know who made the decision to not tell, not to disclose this information to Diddy's lawyer, that the prosecutors, that the U.S. Attorney's Office was in possession of his notes, including possibly privileged materials, until after the government put them in a filing, public filing, to keep him incarcerated. Now, I will say the public filing that we have, it is redacted. It is not a full public filing that they all have access to. And then finally, exactly what material was taken. I definitely think Diddy has the right to know that. But if my memory serves me correctly, this exactly what material was taken question will already be answered because the government, I believe, if my memory serves correct me, they were saying Diddy is going to be forwarded all this stuff, or maybe he already has or something like that. But I don't know. It looks like who knows who we can trust on either side of this particular situation. I feel like I've already said all the opinion I needed to say as far as this goes. And now I just think, actually, you know what? Thank you, Exhibit A. Why I am always saying we have to treat everybody in the system how we would want to be treated. Not only is it just good manners and the golden rule, but also, then if somebody really is a monster, which I ain't saying Diddy is because I don't know, because I wasn't there and innocent until proven guilty. But how can we know if there's a mistrial before the freaking real trial even starts? That's all I really have for right now. In the meantime, facts ain't defamation. Love you, okay, bye.
Welcome into my world. You're playing my game. Thought that you could come up and fitting off of my knee. Talking out the side of your neck like you're insane. Cortisol levels to the roof. Inflame. Kids these days so shameless. Selling out real friends for a paycheck. Mama didn't teach them no home training. Wanna be me so bad, but they failing. Step to the plate though. I'll take a challenger. I ain't scared of no low life scavenger. I should warn you though, if you haven't heard, I ain't no Colleen ukulele ballanger. Shots been fired. Run and tell that. Say it to my face though. Now behind my back. Won't be long till you share it in a group chat. And when I call you up, you gonna backtrack. And you should've kept my name out your mouth.